As the new year began, Keir Starmer's actions ignited a wave of outrage, exposing a stark contradiction between his words and deeds. Revelations surrounding his extravagant holiday expenses have left many questioning the values and priorities of the Labour leader. Once celebrated as a man of the people, Starmer's choices now suggest an alarming disconnect from the everyday struggles of ordinary Britons. His recent trip to Madeira with his family has become a lightning rod for criticism, not just for the destination, but for the excessive costs and questionable details surrounding the journey. It's a troubling glimpse into a lifestyle that seems worlds apart from the hardship faced by millions across the UK. The initial optics of Starmer's departure seemed calculated to deflect scrutiny. Traveling to Madeira on a commercial flight might have appeared as a modest choice, aligning with his public persona of fairness and accountability. However, the return leg of his journey revealed a very different reality. Reports indicate that Starmer opted to return to the UK on a private jet, a luxury few can fathom, let alone afford. The jet, which landed at Leeds Bradford Airport, is alleged to have been funded by one of Labour's wealthy donors. This raises uncomfortable questions about the strings attached to such generosity. For someone who regularly champions environmental sustainability and condemns economic inequality, the decision reeks of hypocrisy. Private jets are among the most emissions-heavy modes of transportation, symbolizing privilege and excess, qualities that stand in stark contrast to the values Starmer professes. The Villa Starmer rented in Madeira only adds to the controversy. Arranged by an unnamed local company, the secrecy surrounding this accommodation choice has fueled further suspicion. Why the need for such clandestine arrangements? It's hard not to infer that Starmer anticipated the backlash such opulence would provoke. The luxurious villa, equipped with every conceivable comfort, underscores the growing divide between Starmer and the millions of Britons grappling with rising energy bills, unaffordable groceries, and stagnant wages. For a leader who claims to understand and advocate for the working class, this display of extravagance is tone-deaf at best and deeply troubling at worst. Adding insult to injury was the reported behavior of Starmer and his family during their holiday. In a small but telling incident, they were spotted skipping a queue of tourists waiting up to 3 hours for a toboggan ride. While hundreds of ordinary people stood patiently in line, Starmer bypassed the wait entirely, an act that epitomizes entitlement. It's a gesture that betrays a sense of privilege, as though his position exempts him from the rules that apply to everyone else. For a man who preaches about equality and fairness, this behavior paints a very different picture. One of a leader increasingly out of touch with the values he claims to uphold. Back in the UK, the contradictions in Starmer's leadership continue to mount. His vocal criticism of government waste has been a cornerstone of his public rhetoric. Yet Labour under his leadership has engaged in similarly questionable spending. Reports have surfaced of nearly £80,000 spent removing Conservative Party blue decor from the Downing Street media briefing room. This petty act of erasure highlights a troubling prioritization of optics over substance. At a time when many families are struggling to put food on the table, this expenditure feels like a slap in the face. That money could have been directed towards initiatives to ease the burden on struggling households or bolster underfunded public services. Instead, it was squandered on superficial changes that serve no meaningful purpose. These actions point to a broader pattern of behavior that should concern anyone invested in genuine leadership. For all his talk of transparency and accountability, Starmer has gone to great lengths to obscure the details of his holiday and its funding. The reliance on wealthy donors to bankroll luxury expenses like private jets and opulent villas raises serious questions about his independence as a leader. How can Starmer claim to stand up to the elite or advocate for the common good when his own actions suggest a deep indebtedness to those with wealth and influence? These are not the choices of a leader who prioritizes the needs of ordinary citizens. The implications of this reliance are far-reaching. The private jet and lavish accommodations are not just symbols of excess. They hint at an underlying allegiance to a privileged few. Such connections undermine Starmer's credibility when he speaks out against corporate greed or social inequality. The British public deserves a leader who is truly committed to challenging entrenched power structures, not one who appears to benefit from them. This growing disillusionment with Starmer's leadership is compounded by the broader political context in which it unfolds. Britain is at a crossroads, grappling with a cost of living crisis, underfunded public services, and deepening social divisions. People are desperate for authentic leadership, someone who can empathize with their struggles and offer real solutions. Starmer's actions, however, suggest a preoccupation with personal comfort and political maneuvering rather than a genuine commitment to change. His decisions betray the trust of those who once believed in his vision for a fairer, more equitable society. Labour supporters who hoped for a transformative leader are now left questioning whether Starmer is the right person to lead the party into the future. His reliance on wealthy donors, his extravagant lifestyle, and his apparent detachment from the realities faced by ordinary Britons paint a troubling picture. The party that once stood for the many now risks becoming a vehicle for the ambitions of a privileged few. This shift in focus is not just a betrayal of Labour's traditional values. It is a disservice to the millions of people who depend on the party to advocate for their interests. The erosion of trust in Starmer's leadership is a symptom of a larger problem in British politics. People are tired of leaders who say one thing and do another, who preach accountability while engaging in behavior that defies scrutiny. They are yearning for authenticity, for leaders who lead by example and prioritize the needs of the country over their own ambitions. Starmer's recent actions have shown that he is not that leader. His choices, from his holiday extravagance to his wasteful spending in Downing Street, suggest a man more concerned with maintaining appearances than with effecting meaningful change. It is worth reflecting on what this means for the future of Labour and for Britain as a whole. The party's ability to connect with voters and present a compelling alternative to the status quo depends on its leader's credibility and integrity. Starmer's actions risk alienating the very people Labour seeks to represent. At a time when the country is crying out for bold, principled leadership, his behavior sends the opposite message: that he is out of touch, unaccountable, and more interested in enjoying the perks of power than in addressing the challenges facing the nation. The British people deserve better. They deserve a leader who understands their struggles, who is willing to make sacrifices and lead by example. They deserve someone who is committed to transparency, accountability, and genuine change. Starmer's recent actions have fallen far short of these expectations, and the disappointment is palpable. For a leader who once promised to rebuild trust and restore faith in politics, his behavior has been a profound letdown. As the criticism mounts, one must ask, how much more will the British public tolerate? How many more instances of hypocrisy and privilege will it take before they demand better? Starmer's leadership has been a disappointment, and his recent actions are just the latest in a long line of failures. Britain deserves a leader who puts the needs of the country first, who is willing to challenge the status quo and fight for a fairer, more equitable society. Keir Starmer, it seems, is not that leader. The question now is whether Labour can find someone who is, before it's too late. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, has recently found himself at the centre of controversy due to his choice of a lavish holiday destination that has sparked widespread debate. The political figure, often seen advocating for equality and championing the cause of working-class individuals, reportedly indulged in a holiday that many critics argue starkly contrasts with his public persona. The reported costs of this luxurious getaway have left many speechless, raising questions about the message it sends to the public, particularly at a time when many are struggling with the cost of living crisis. The holiday in question was reportedly an extravagant retreat to a high-end resort, complete with premium accommodations, gourmet dining experiences, and exclusive amenities. Speculations about the exact cost of this indulgence have been rife, with estimates suggesting it may have run into tens of thousands of pounds. For a leader who often speaks about the need to bridge the gap between the affluent and the less fortunate, such a display of opulence has not gone unnoticed. Critics have been quick to point out the potential disconnect between his public rhetoric and personal lifestyle choices, fueling debates about the authenticity of his commitment to the causes he espouses. The timing of this luxurious escapade has further intensified public scrutiny. The holiday reportedly coincided with a period when many British families were grappling with soaring energy bills, rising grocery costs,